Good evening, everyone. We will be starting. So we have once again. Good evening, everyone. First item: do we have any conflict of interest from members for the file we have tonight? None. Third item is the adoption of the agenda. I would need. Is Would anyone make any modification or additions to the agenda? I need someone to move as presented. Seconded by Mr. Depré. All those in favor, aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. The next item, adoption of the minutes of the last meeting. Were there any changes or modifications to be made to the minutes? I would need someone to move the adoption of the minutes as presented. Moved by Mr. Bell. All those in favor, wishing to pass aye. Against, nay. Motion carried. Next item, 6A. A various on the 664787 New Brunswick Inc., 15 Victoria Street, and I think Mr. Boudreau will be doing the presentation. So the floor is yours. Thanks, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So we have in front of you a request to modify. The variance at first was for two different things, like the setback and also the number of floors. But after reviewing like the plans and the site plans, I noticed like the variance where the setback was not required. So I will get into more details in my report. So today, it's the variance only for the number of floors in the building. So the land is at 15 Victoria Street in Shediac, right downtown Shediac. And there's an aerial picture of the lot just behind Dollar Store. It's on the corner of Victoria and Main Street. So the request is to reduce like the number of story, like from 2-story to 1-story. And the variance for the setback, if I can explain, the fact there are two buildings like besides the existing building, so it allow like a building to meet like the same standards. So we're closer or farther, like depending on circumstances, but it allowed the building to have a setback as far as the existing building. So in this case, well, it's a minor variance anyway, like if it was the case. But it's not even required, like to have a variance for the setback. So the variance in front of us this evening is for the height of the building. So the bylaw in Central Commercial, Section 13, it says like all like buildings within this zone has to have a minimum of 2-story, but cannot exceed 20 meters in height. And here we see like the elevation proposed for the building, it's only 1-story. In terms of communication with the public or with the agencies, I was not there, but my colleague Phil Robichaud had a meeting with Shediac downtown, and they look at the project. So they provided their comments in writing, and they're attached in the report you just have. Other than this, well, I took some pictures of the site as it is today. And on Google, you could see like there's a 2-story building before. So it's a type of development minimum like that should be allowed in the downtown. It was identified in my research for this file. So notice was sent like to the landowners like within 60 meters of the property. So we did not receive any comments other than the comments we received as the result of the meeting with the downtown Shediac. The 4 letters were presented. They're all attached with the report and published on the website. So they're not added in today's presentation unless you would like to see them. I did not have the intent like to read them aloud. So they were done publicly. Simply like the authority under the act, legal authority. I did it in English. I will read it.
Commission may permit a reasonable variance from the requirements referred to in paragraph 53(2) of a zoning bylaw. It is if it is of the opinion that the variance is desirable for the development of the parcel of land and is in keeping with the general intent of the bylaw and any plan under this act affecting the development. Le rapport touche beaucoup dessus.
So the report also touches a lot on those sections, like it tests if the variance is reasonable. And I know like the report was thick, but I didn't want to exclude any sections. So in policies and principles, so I added all the sections that were part of like downtown Shediac, like the borough, also downtown borough for commercial uses, just to avoid any confusion. So why one section was added or not. So that's why like document is longer than it could be. But I said it's better to have more information than not enough. And finally, like so the staff recommendation is that like the variance for to reduce. I will read it in French. So the variance by Michel Boudreau to reduce the amount of story required by a few main building to a central commercial 2 stories on the property bearing PID B denied. It's not uh, be denied because the variance is not reasonable and is not meeting the general intent of the zoning bylaw and is opposing policies in the municipal plan. It's really all I have in terms of presentation. So thank you, Mr. Boudreau. So questions? I have no question. So the owners, could they maybe talk the project? So after the questions, I might have questions after. So you had a map like where you were showing like the lots and like all the lots like in the region, like it's a map. So where does the CC zoning end? It includes pretty much what's on the map there. It doesn't stop on this lot. So the house after, is it a 2-story house or one? No more questions. So Mr. Boudreau, would you like to discuss the file? Good evening, everyone. So perfect. First, as I mentioned, good evening and thanks, and Mr. Boudreau and the PRAC committee members like to invite us this evening. Also, thank you to Jeff and Mr. Robichaud. I know he wasn't able to be here to help us like in the variance process. I don't know up to which point I want to repeat myself, but I think you receive several letters for this project, and I'm not. However, if you have any questions, do not hesitate, as I do not want to get into details. So when we look at this project, so Lisa asked me to take the lead on this project, and we have to specify the company 6647 NB Inc. So it's a company that belongs to the two of us, and it's also affiliated with the Dr. Lisa Corporation. As for support letters, I don't think there was no opposition. That how you still receive, I think, 3 letters. One from Mr. Stéphane Boudreau of a Stefco Enterprise, and he was supporting the project. Second letter was Mr. Paul Babin, which is an accountant and it's the neighbor. We did not ask the question like to the Dollarama owner. I think it's a big corporation that owns this. But however, we still receive a letter like from downtown Shediac Inc. from Mississauga, and they're supporting this project. So Lisa always operated like in downtown Shediac, and she's been there for at the 352 Main Street for 25 years, and it was a benefit like because of her clientele, because a lot of her clientele they already work downtown, so it's quite convenient for them, and during their lunch hour, after work, or even before work, so they just get into town, and office like that's a comment she hears as a chiropractor. Is one of the reasons we choose Victoria Street. We were aware like it was central commercial, and we looked briefly because we were open to look at to see like for the two-story issues, but it's as Lisa said that we're not like in the tenant business, we are in the healthcare business, her and not me. Do we really want like to get into this? So after very brief discussion, it was clear that it wasn't the direction and the vision of the clinic. So there's still some commercial spaces when we're talking about the two-story. Like there's still some commercial spaces like for rent. So there's still a lot like that are empty in the town. So for residential units, as you know, I counted briefly. I think there are at least 400 units being built right now, and we do not want to get into like in this type of business. And I think it would be risky as a clinic to get in with the very high costs that we could have with a second or third floor. And I think it would be difficult to support because we would have to rely on the tenant. So we do not want to rely on anything on this side. So and as for the lot, well, it's is only like 80 feet by 150 feet. So it gives us like the parking we need, and it's only the one we have. So we have about 10 spots like on the plans we submitted. To starting to have other tenants, it could become a problem. And the clinic, well, one of the other reasons, like with the clinic, we want to broaden our services within the next couple of years. And a clinic that offers like a chiropractor practice at a second story, it's not convenient. It's completely so received a few times. So that's why we look at this a lot, and it was a good spot. So the plans that you could see, it's still a nice building. It's a very nice building, and I think it would finish like this Victoria Street because we have there's a few buildings with the professional business. We have accountants. There's an optometrist just across the street. So when we look around, so these are mostly like a one-story building. There's also a few residences on that street. So we thought it would be a good fit, like for the small street. Another thing with the Victoria Street, it gives access to with the back street. So if someone wants to avoid like downtown or Shediac, it can also like go on Victoria Street via Bridge. So it's still a nice location, and it also allows like to keep our business downtown in downtown Shediac. I could look quickly. So I think in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I wanted to see. And one of the points I noted is so Victoria Street, it's a secondary street. It's a back street, and we understand now. So like the reason for zoning. So we're not directly on Main Street. We are on a side street. So this is why we are here this evening. It's to promote like the construction. It is the first barrier like, amongst many more to come, and so we would be very grateful if this variance would be considered by the Pride Committee members. I don't know if there are any questions, but and I think in my letter, like it was very clear. So if you have any questions after reading the letter, I could try to answer that. And then Lisa is here too, so in case you have more specific questions for her. So thank you. Thanks, Mr. Boudreau. Any members who would have some questions? Mrs. Chevary, do you have a question? I think you pretty much answered, like for a second or third story, like if you look at the option, like to do something on second or third story. So I'm a member of downtown the center. So I was at the meeting, like where the committee discussed it, and as we saw in the letter, the committee supports the variance. And as Mr. Boudreau said, in my opinion, because it's a side street to Main Street, I would be for the variance because I think the type of businesses they have is probably more like one story and not two stories. So because most of the individuals, I would be ready to support this variance. And it's also to the fact, so I don't know why, like the Dolorama, they must have needed a variance. So at the time, so you didn't need like a variance at the time. So the plan mentions like existing development, like it's only one example. So that's one example they wanted to avoid, like it was the dollar store. So because against the street that two-story like multi-purposes, and I don't think the dollar store should be used as an example to do things well. Any more questions? Would there be any other members of the public who would like to discuss? I will make the motion that we deny the recommendation. So we need an explanation for the reason. So maybe a two-story building with with an apartment at the second floor. So maybe so the community. It's not a big lot. So yes, it's a variance, but so the lot is not big enough. So they might be able to have an apartment like on the second floor or another office, but with the parking and so the act as when a variance is granted, so that the variance has to be judged reasonable, deemed reasonable, and it has to follow the intent of the plan. So that's why the motion we propose today. Maybe I should not move it. If we vote against, well, does it mean the motion in front of you is to have the permission to adopt the variance? If there's no consensus by the comment, it's not automatically like the deny mean like you accept like the variance. Unfortunately, we need a direct motion that you you accept because it follows the intent and it meets the goals or it's a reasonable request. Yes, like the commission refuse because they don't deem the variance reasonable, but I think it's reasonable like for as I explained last month, like all decision taking at this committee is subject like to an appeal, and if we have to defend it in appeal, we have to give a reason why the decision was taken. So that's I you have to give a reason to your motions, and then it will be up to you to decide. So, Mr. Boudreau, do you have an Connie? So you will write which motion to adopt like the variant? I think it's reasonable because it's a side street. It's a secondary street supported by downtown, and it was supported by downtown Shediac Inc. So, Connie, you got this. And we need someone to second it. Mr. Bell. Questions? So it's to adopt the variance to accept one story. All those in favor saying by saying aye. Against nay. Carried. Thank you very much. No other. The next meeting will be on June 13 at 6 o'clock. So I need someone to adjourn the meeting. So thank you very much, everyone.